Andy XL back with another NFXL podcast, and it's time for this week's Good Week, Bad Week after week 13's actions. So, who had a joyful Thanksgiving week and who is glad unlucky 13 is behind them? Well, let's start with the good week teams, and the team who had the best week of all were the Chicago Bears. In recent weeks, I've gone from seeing the Bears going into the wildcard spots to leading the NFC North, moving up the NFC standings into a home field advantage situation, and now they're holding the one seed after week 13, and they got it by beating the reigning champion Eagles in week 13. Right now, every week is a good week for the Bears, but this is the best yet. Now they head to Green Bay in the first of two meetings in 3 weeks with the Packers. These games could decide who takes the division title into the postseason, but incredibly, the Bears are the teams to catch in the NFC after this massive week for them. And for anybody to beat the Dallas Cowboys to the best week after their win tells it all. But the Cowboys have had a great week too. They've rounded up a posse and are riding after the rest of the league now. Trouble is, have they let them get across the border before they left town? But right now, they feel like they can beat anybody after wins over the Eagles and Chiefs, and they may well need to beat everybody in front of them, starting with another huge matchup against the team one place ahead of them in the NFC standings, the Lions, on Thursday Night Football. But after week 13, Jerry Jones will be a happy man because everybody is talking about dem Cowboys. Right, the New England Patriots. The Patriots had a really good week as they stayed top of the AFC standings after they blew the Giants away in week 13. This 10th win may mean they need just one more to secure a divisional title, and they and the Broncos look set to fight it out for top seeding from the AFC following the Colts loss this week. And that brings us on to those Denver Broncos who also had another good week. Once again, it may not have been pretty, but the Broncos' win over the Commanders gives them win number 10 of the season and all but ensures they will be going beyond week 18 of the season. And they can pull level with the Patriots in the race for the one seed in the AFC if they beat the Raiders in week 14. So a great week in that they have made the postseason. Now they can go after two more wins to pretty much secure the AFC West title, and in doing so, make a push for the week one bye in the playoffs. Keep my voice going. Right, Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jags' routine win over the pitiful Titans, combined with another Colts loss, puts them top of the AFC South. But now we get into the games within the division as the Jags host the Colts in week 14 and meet them again in Indy in week 17. But week 13 was a good week for the Jags as they now control their own fate. And as they hit, sorry, um, and as they get the Jets in week, sorry, I couldn't read my own script, and and as they get the Jets in week 15 and the Titans in week 18, the two wins they need to pretty much ensure postseason football look to be the least they can expect from the regular season after this win. Right, and it was certainly a good week for the Houston Texans. The Texans' week 13 win over the Colts blows the AFC South wide open, and this fourth win in a row means the Texans are the team on a roll, and with the Jags and Colts both a game ahead of them, but playing each other twice between now and the end of the season, the possibility of them taking wins off each other could give the Texans a clear opportunity to win this division, and they will get their own shot at the Colts again in week 18. So that could yet be a divisional title decider. But they are also just a game out of a wildcard spot following this win and look capable of at least going beyond week 18 via that route. So this was about as good a week as it could have been for the Texans. The only thing that would have made it better was a Jags loss. Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks were efficient and needed to be no more than that to get past the Vikings with a quarterback who was clearly out of his depth. But this win and the Rams loss means the Seahawks are tied on 9-3 with the Rams at the top of the NFC West and also tied with the Bears and the Rams at the top of the NFC standings. The postseason is probably just 2 wins away now, and week 16 against the Rams could have an awful lot riding on it if the Seahawks can keep winning. It was a good week for the Buffalo Bills. The Bills got a pivotal win over the Steelers in week 13. The win sees them move into seventh in the AFC and hold the final wildcard spot. If they had lost, they would be on the outside looking in. So this was a huge win for them. Week 14 sees them host the Bengals. Another win there, and they will look at games against the Browns and Jets from the remaining games as ones that could take them to the postseason. Right, the Green Bay Packers had a good week, a very good week. The Packers delivered big time against the Lions to move away from them in the NFC North and to remain solidly in a wild card spot and on the tails of the Bears in the NFC North title race. In week 14, they welcomed those Bears to Lambeau as they seek to take over the lead of that division before a tough road trip to Denver in week 15, then the return game against the Bears. So the next 3 weeks continue a run of pivotal fixtures for the Packers that will define where they stand in the race for the postseason, but they can certainly consider Thanksgiving to have been good for them. And so can the San Francisco 49ers. As you would expect from a team that rarely underperforms, the 49ers did the job against the Browns to enhance their prospects of making the postseason. And the Rams' loss to the Panthers gives them a sniff of winning the NFC West once more. They will they will sit on bye week in 14, hoping one or both the Rams and the Seahawks slip up. But two more wins will almost certainly get them into the postseason now. Tennessee in week 15 will present them with a great chance to get one of them after their bye. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers had a good week. The Bucks got the win over the Cardinals that they so badly needed. And with the Falcons losing, the Bucks and the Panthers, who got the big win of the week over the Rams, will now fight it out for the NFC South title. And the two meetings between those two teams in week 16 and 18 look to be the crucial games, in deciding who comes out on top. But it is the Bucks that hold the divisional lead right now, having got this vital win and seemingly getting healthier by the week. But let's not talk about the Bucks without talking about the Carolina Panthers. What a win that was over the Rams. It was huge. But it is even bigger considering the Bucks won this week. A loss for the Panthers would have left them trailing the Bucks by a game and a half and 3 games out of a wild card spot. But having got this massive win, they go into their bye with renewed hope in the NFC South. But the wild card route still looks tough for them. The Cincinnati Bengals had a good week. They had to beat the Ravens to keep their season alive, and with Joe Burrow back at the helm and Lamar Jackson misfiring for the Ravens, they did just that. They will watch the Ravens and Stevens match up with interest in week 14, hoping the Ravens win as that would suit them better in terms of tie breaks. But they still need to back up the win over the Ravens with another in Buffalo if they have to avoid losing the ground they gained in week 13. But it was a good week this week, as it was for Los Angeles Chargers overall. After losing to the Jags in week 11, the Chargers spent their bye week knowing the week 13 game against the Raiders was one they badly needed to win, and they got the job done with room to spare, truth be told. This win keeps them in the wildcard spot, but their last 5 games are against the Eagles, Chiefs, Cowboys, Texans, and Broncos, which shows how important getting the win over the Raiders was for the Chargers. It's a tough road ahead, but it would have been a really uphill road if they'd lost this week. And they've also got the concern about Justin Herbert and his non-throwing hand going forward. So they could have fallen into the next category, which I just have added in for this week, mixed fortunes. They could have been in that. The Miami Dolphins are. The Dolphins are in must-win every week territory, and they did their bit by getting a win, albeit a hard-earned one, over the Saints in week 13. But wins for the Jags, Chargers, Bills, and Texans mean they really haven't gained any ground in the AFC wildcard race in week 13, and time's running out for them. So let's get on to the bad week now. And the team that had the worst week were the Kansas City Chiefs. Everybody is coming out of the woodwork with comments like end of an era and such like. The truth is the Chiefs overachieved last season, and this season is more reflective of where this team is across the 2 seasons, which means they are better than where they are right now, but not as good as they were 2 seasons ago. It's the last 2 seasons we need to look at. They haven't been great last season, and they're certainly not great this season. But after the loss to the Cowboys in week 13, 4-1 from here looks to be a minimum requirement if they are to make the postseason. They may even need to win their last 5 to get in, And week 14 sees them host another team from the Lone Star State that is in great form, the Texans. Now, Patrick Mahomes continues to play at the highest of levels, but can he continue his own excellent form and find a way to get this team beyond week 18? It's looking like a struggle now. And it might be a struggle too for the Detroit Lions, who had a bad week in losing to the Packers. That loss dumps them out of the postseason spots right now. Not only is that a big in-division loss, the Bears also won, meaning the Lions need to focus on the wild card race rather than the divisional race right now. And in that race, wins for the Seahawks and 49ers made it an even worse week for Dan Campbell and his team. And they also have to wait on news regarding Amon-Ra St. Brown, which needs to be positive, having already lost Sam Laporta probably for the season, which now makes their Thursday night football meeting with the Cowboys a huge swing game for both teams. Atlanta Falcons had a bad week. A bad week is a bad week when you're a fall out of contention. And the Falcons' fourth quarter capitulation to the Jets, combined with wins for the Bucks and Panthers, have pretty much ended any chance they had of winning the NFC South. And as that was their only route to the postseason for them, this loss has effectively ended their season. So bad week, bad week, bad week. Indianapolis Colts. Well, they certainly had a bad week. They lost to the Texans and the Jags won. That's changed the picture radically in a negative way for Indianapolis. They need to turn their recent dip in results and form around to get back to the top of the AFC, and they would love to do that in Jacksonville in Week 14, but lose that one though, and their postseason spot will be in severe jeopardy. They have a tough run in as after the game with the Jags, they go to Seattle, host the 49ers, then the Jags at home before they go to Houston in Week 18. So they, like the Chargers, have got a tough run in. With 3 games against their divisional rivals, the Colts still hold the keys to the AFC South. They just need to rediscover how to turn those keys in the right direction. Right, it was a bad week for the Baltimore Ravens. Kind of. Well, it was. As I've said in recent weeks, the Ravens D has been carrying the load through their winning run, but they could not do so here as the load given them by multiple Lamar Jackson turnovers proved too much of a burden for them to overcome. Jackson and Derrick Henry are simply not the force of old at the moment and not providing the levels of elite play we have seen from them in previous seasons. But they may not need to be at those levels for the Ravens to win the AFC North this season. This defeat to the Bengals has slightly opened the door for Cincy if they can put a late season run together. The only good thing about this week for Baltimore was the loss for the Steelers, which means the Ravens stay top of the poor AFC North. And let's have a look at those Pittsburgh Steelers. Well, if it's a bad week for the Ravens, it was a bad week for the Steelers. Their loss came at the hands of the Bills, and with both them and the Ravens both losing, increased the chances that only one team from the AFC North will make the postseason. And right now, that's not the Steelers. Making the 2 meetings with the Ravens huge now. The second comes in the final week of the regular season. The first comes this very week. It was a bad week again for the Philadelphia Eagles. Crisis? What crisis, though? Let's have a look at it. If it's a crisis, it's a crisis. You call it that. But the Eagles may have suffered a major blow in the race for top seeding in the NFC South, but they remain clear at the top of the NFC East and have a decent run in to secure that title and get a home game in week 1 of the postseason. But the lack of production from the offense is becoming more and more an issue that needs to be resolved and quickly if they are to have any hope of winning it all again this season. And it was a bad week for the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams lost to the Panthers, drops them back towards the Seahawks and 49ers in the AFC West and out of the top seeding spots in the NFC for good measure. So now they need to get back to winning ways at the Cardinals in week 14 if they are to maintain their position in both the division and conference standings. Right, that's the good news, bad news, and mixed news. Now, and in other news, Max Brosma had an awful time on debut for the Minnesota Vikings, and that gave them no chance of winning against the Seahawks as they failed to trouble the scorers, and their faint hopes of making the postseason disappeared after this loss. Another narrow loss in week 13, this time to the Bucks, has ended any lingering hope that the Arizona Cardinals had of making the postseason. They have lost 7 games this season by 4 points or fewer, so there is hope for next season. But is Kyler Murray one of the answers to the questions that the Cardinals need to find the correct answers to? That's the big one. Right, the New York Jets finally got a win for the noble efforts in recent weeks. This win does nothing to change their prospects for the season, though, but in beating the Atlanta Falcons, they have surely ended any lingering hopes the Falcons had of winning the NFC South and making the postseason. The Washington Commanders came mighty close to pulling off a shot win over the Broncos, but fell just short. This shows this team is not far away from being good, as they were last season. Get Jaden Daniels healthy and make the right moves this off-season, and they could well have a bounce-back season in 2026. The Cleveland Browns played well on defense again, and Myles Garrett remains on track to set a new single-season sack record, but the Browns lost again. The New York Giants were no match for the Patriots in Week 13 and currently hold the second pick in the 2026 draft. Use that wisely, get Malik Neighbors and Cam Scatterbo back to help Jackson Dart, and they can join the Commanders in making the NFC East a beast of a division in 2026. The Las Vegas Raiders got soundly beaten by the Chargers, and once again the O-line was awful. Broken record, I know, but this simply has to see a major overhaul this off-season. And then they've got the questions about the aging Pete Carroll and Geno Smith to answer too. Tyler Shugg looked better for the New Orleans Saints in Week 13, but they still went down to another loss. Is Shugg the answer to the quarterback problem? Is the first of many questions the Saints need to find answers to before next season. And finally, the Tennessee Titans stunk the joint up again in Week 13. Back-to-back first overall picks could be theirs. So that's my good week, bad week for this week. Turn my attention to Week 14 next, when I come back with a Thursday night football preview, and then we'll move on to the weekend action. So stay tuned for that. Oh, and also possibly on Friday, I'm going to put out my December update for the quarterback picture ahead of the 2026 NFL draft, and I've got some very strong thoughts in that area. So make sure you tune in for that one.